All right. Mississippi State, number 6, Texas A&M. Texas A&M, 14-point favorites in this one. The over-under I have is 1 Texas A&M touchdown in the first 58 minutes. That's right. Yeah, 1 Texas A&M touchdown in the first 58 minutes. That's what the Bulldogs allowed to Tennessee last week. Isn't that wild, Will? Think about this. Yes. Mississippi State held Tennessee to 1 offensive touchdown in the first 58 minutes in a game in which Tennessee scored 41 points. I don't know.
This game, like I said, this is the best game of the week. I thought there were like some of those like get down, punch the ball. No, I guess it was all just like turnovers.
Ball scored on the first play after the 2-minute timeout, and then a touchdown in overtime, plus 2 defensive touchdowns and 2 Max Gilbert field goals. That's how that happens. Pretty wild. That's just not something you see every day. And Mississippi State also held Northern Illinois to 1 offensive touchdown all game. Alcorn State had 0 points all game. Arizona State, that offense, very decorated with Sam Levitt, Jordan Tyson. They had 2 offensive touchdowns that was all game. And then in the first 58 minutes against Southern Miss, 1 offensive touchdown allowed. So to recap, in the first 58 minutes of football that Mississippi State has been playing in these games, they have allowed a total of 5 offensive touchdowns this year. That's 1 per game. Pretty wild. What did A&M just do against Auburn? Score 1 offensive touchdown. I thought Auburn did a really, really nice job on Marcel Reed, preventing him from getting into a rhythm, because he's very much a rhythm quarterback. Once he kind of gets a few of those completions going, it just, with the tempo that they can run, with his mobility, it's just a really tough thing to slow down and stop. And I thought last week, talk about getting quarterbacks out of rhythm, who very much look like they need to be kind of in that flow. Mississippi State did a really nice job preventing Joey Aguilar from getting into a rhythm. Now, he still ends up having a ton of yards in this one, and he still made some big-time throws and big-time plays, but there were a lot of moments in which you kind of wondering, what's he looking at? This is the guy that turned the football over more than anybody in college football last year. And Mississippi State kind of brought that out in him. I also thought Mississippi State was really, really good against a high-powered Tennessee rushing attack. Like, I'm telling you, Mississippi State's defense, nobody's going to be talking about it, understandably so. There are not sickos that are sitting there breaking down Coleman Hutzler and what his unit is doing. It's among the most improved units in the SEC with Tillman and Manning and the things that they're doing. I love A&M's offense. Like I was saying as recently as 2 weeks ago, I think A&M could end up having the best offense in the SEC this year. I truly do. But I think this is going to be another tough day at the office. I really do. And I wouldn't have said that at this time last week, but I'm going low scoring. Aggies find a way to win this one. Kind of ugly again, 24-14.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things where we've already talked about the QB play and kind of the offense across the SEC not living up to expectations. So it'd be easy to say like, oh, well, of course the defenses look better. But if you look at the sample size, I mean, the non-conference performance by the SEC this year, and you hit on it, was awesome, right? Even in the Ohio State game, Texas was able to limit a lot of the things that Ohio State did in Columbus. We talked about what Mississippi State was able to do against Arizona State at the time. So I really don't think this is fool's gold, where we see a lot of improvement from these defensive units across the SEC. And Mississippi State's got to be honestly the best case of that, right? Where, last year they were just hapless. They had no identity on either side of the ball. It was like, yeah, they had some close games in a way, but, it's Michael Van Buren doing some cool stuff, but it was never really a team that was taken seriously. And this year, you got your offensive head coach, so you already can kind of fall back on that. Got your starting quarterback, which is a big deal. But then the defense has just been lights out. I think that stat is so indicative of how, you never know how one play could change a game. I'm not going to do like the sliding doors thing here, but if you can stop an offense like Tennessee that was able to gain, we talked about almost 500 yards against your defense, and still keep them out of the end zone and still like keep it into a close game. I love Mississippi State this year. That being said, I think this is actually going to be the prove it game for Texas A&M, right? Auburn, what can we say about old Auburn, man? Sweet old Auburn. They're doing their best out there. They're doing something out there.
That was the most backhanded little bro comment you could have ever given. They're doing their best out there. That's what you got for Auburn fans. They've been
project, but I'm not sure who's doing all the work. I'm just saying, shutting down that offense is just not that impressive. And on the other end of it, I talked about it. Like Marcel Reed still has some growing to do now in an SEC where a lot of the quarterbacks have fallen back via injury or just being basura. Like Marcel Reed has a chance here, right, to kind of like weave his way through the SEC and end up like an all SEC quarterback. This Texas A&M offense has a chance to be a top 2, 3, 4 offense in the SEC. I mean, if you're them, you're thinking, why not number one? We have all this talent. So I think this is, again, how about this? This is the most excited for this matchup I've been in a while. I've said it over and over again. I hate this matchup because of the uniforms. This matchup
It's too much maroon.
infuriates me, and I believe I'm looking at it here. Of course, this is what I've been looking up this whole time. Unless Mississippi State's graphic department kind of made an error here, looks like it'll be maroon on black, which I'm not sure if that's better or worse. Because we got an Operation Blackout tweet here for A&M on September 29th. So it looks like they're blacking out Kyle Field. Mississippi State's game graphic has them wearing maroon for this specific game. So this maybe, I don't know how I feel about that.
Don't like that.
Don't know how I feel about that. But visually, this has been a slop game for a lot of reasons over the years. This year, maybe the uniforms will be the worst we've seen, but the football itself is actually going to be awesome. There's a lot to like kind of on both sides of the ball. Again, offensive head coach versus defensive head coach versus two great coordinators on the other side. So, of course, our guy, Fluff Bothwell. So just a ton of talent to like. And again, this is the game that, 14 points feels kind of generous here with how Mississippi State has played. I think if A&M can kind of perform well against this Mississippi State defense, that's going to legitimize them a ton to me, more so than Auburn for sure.
Yeah, because as much as I would like to be able to say A&M's run game should be able to kind of get what it wants, what Mississippi State just did to Tennessee was, I really, like, up until overtime when they get that, the go ahead touchdown late, they kind of contained them. It wasn't getting the chunk plays. Tennessee had a lot more success in the run game against Georgia than it did against Mississippi State, albeit in a different atmosphere. But yeah, I just feel like the takeaway for this is going to be, how good is A&M? Is A&M worthy of being considered as a potential top 5 team? What do we really know about this team if Notre Dame isn't going to be, the world beater defensively and all that? Like, I could see people discussing that for A&M, despite the fact that I think the good news about A&M, and this is maybe a little bit of a spin zone, is you want to see that your team can win a wide variety of games. And so far, I think winning back-to-back games the way that A&M just did with the Notre Dame win, playing out the way that it did, and needing a late score after Notre Dame had kind of shut down the offense in the second half, and then A&M is still able to pull it out late, and then winning a game like that against Auburn where offensively you're just really not able to get anything going after that first drive, and it was a slog. I think it's good to have to win different types of games. Now, if there are warts in those specific units, then obviously those will be exposed at some point. Maybe some of those are going to be exposed against Mississippi State. But I just feel like that's going to be the takeaway of, like, they're not getting the style points. And A&M is not used to being a team, and I think Mike Elko, his reaction last week reflected this. A&M is not used to being a team that has its style points scrutinized. It's not. And that sounds disrespectful, little brother. I realize to say that, but it's how we talk about you if you're in the top 10 and if you're worthy of being considered a national championship candidate. Like those are the conversations that we have with these teams. LSU saw that, obviously. We talk about it with Georgia all the time. We talk about it with Alabama all the time. When you get into the top 10, A&M, this is what it's like. And these are why we have these conversations. And also, because A&M, historically speaking, with all the 8 and 4s, have had very, very rough latter halves of the season. So obviously the natural reaction is going to be to scrutinize, to look at these areas of weakness. And I'm just getting out ahead of this for A&M fans who I feel like will be defensive probably after maybe a too close for comfort win against Mississippi State.
No, yeah, I think it would be shocking, super shocking to me if A&M covered this 14-point spread. But again, I think that this is kind of where I'm drawing the line in the sand, because Notre Dame, big win on the road, not throwing that out. It did take 2 very insane things for that to happen, i.e. the botched hold and the last second play. Not just 1, but 2. Again, you win games the way you win games, and that's part of your DNA. That's the best part of it, is you were able to do that. Like, I'm giving you credit for that. That being said, like I said, shutting down Auburn, not that impressive. Now, when you add a third team, I think you're right. It's like the opposite of logo hold weight. It's like logo hold feathers or something, where I see the A&M logo and I'm like, how are you going to let me down this year? I've never really been one that like drinks the A&M Kool-Aid, and that's one of the few things that I feel like I've consistently gotten right, where I'm like, hey, I'm going to wait and see. If a team with the Georgia logo or a Bama logo or even an LSU logo had this resume, they'd be a top 3-4 team easily. Penn State's done way less than A&M this year, and they're still kind of hanging around the national conversation just for close.
Not top 4.
What's up?
Yeah. Not top 4.
Oh, but they were before, the last game, and people are still acting like, despite the game flow of that they belong. So anyway, I think that A&M weirdly, again, Mississippi State logo, same thing, where it's like, you feel like Notre Dame, you feel like Auburn should give you more weight. But for us real ball knowers and ball watchers across the SEC, this game's going to mean a lot for A&M, and I think they're going to win it, just not cover.
I'll come away really impressed if A&M wins this in decisive fashion. I think a lot of people would say, no big deal. I would be really impressed if A&M comes out and they put up 35 points and Le'Veon Moss just looks like the best version of himself. Ruben Owens gets going, get these chunk plays with Concepcion, and then with Craver, revenge game Mario Craver. Then I would come away feeling like, dang, like A&M is really, really for real. And I'd still actually feel okay about them, even if they win this game only by 10 points, as I predicted.
Really quick, I saw a Michael Van Buren highlight, because of course I did in my timeline the other day. It was like Michael Van Buren to Mario Craver. It was like, wow, they lost some dudes this year at Mississippi State. It's crazy what they've been able to do. Anyway.
Yeah, Kevin Coleman doing great things at Mizzou.
Absolutely,
as well.
yeah.
Yeah, tough.